Okay. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Nabeel Hamza. I work for a company called Jalfar, which is located in the United Arab Emirates. It's a pharmaceutical company with biopharmaceutical products as well. By biopharmaceutical products, we mean those products which are produced through fermentation, uh, which could be through microbial cells or through mammalian cells. Like an example would be, if you would know, insulin and erythropoietin are some examples of biopharmaceutical medicines, which is contrary to the regular pharma products that you see. You all know about tablets and syrups and capsules. So this is something different from those kind of products. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are already in the field or who understand biopharmaceuticals. So the different kinds of biopharmaceutical products that people manufacture would be vaccines, blood and blood components, body cells and tissues, living cells. There's a latest treatment method called cell therapy, and there's gene therapy, recombinant therapeutic proteins. These are all advanced forms of biopharmaceuticals. I'm sure some of you would have heard about CART therapy also. That's the C-cell, T-cell therapy module. The main differences actually come down from the manufacturing part of it. Because the biopharmaceuticals are manufactured in living organisms, and it could be from there are lots of methodologies that are involved in the production process. It's very complicated. It's not like your normal chemical synthetic product where you will have a lot of similarity in the processes. It's like any company which produces a biopharmaceutical product, there's a lot of lot-to-lot variation in the same company in the same process. So there's a lot of variability. This comes from it being a biological product. Now, if you look at the market, both traditional pharma and biopharma companies have been growing at a very good pace. And the biotech is a more newer industry, you could say. And if you remember the current situation that we had with the COVID, that fueled the requirement for more biopharmaceutical products. For example, there was a huge demand, as we all know, for the vaccines, which is a biotechnology product. And along with that, there was also a lot of alternative therapies that were being looked into. For example, the monoclonal antibody therapies for COVID and other rare diseases. And it was from 2019 to 2020 that the biotech double-digit annual growth for the pandemic, and this was reported by McKinsey. The biotech almost sees a huge growth potential in those countries which did not have any biotech from before, and those countries involve Middle East and the North African region as well. India has a very stable and very established sector for biotech, but it's not the same case within the Middle East and Africa. But the pandemic has fueled a very phenomenal growth in this area. Now, if you look at biopharmaceutical products, by type, there are different kinds of products. For example, there is the monoclonal antibodies. Mostly the application for monoclonal antibodies is on the oncology part, where you use it for cancer treatment. Then you have interferons, which work on virus, insulin for diabetes. Then we have the growth and coagulation factors. For example, you use it in areas which have thrombosis and stuff like that. Erythropoietin, which is used for again cancer patients, and it's also used illegally as a performance enhancer in sports. Then, as I said, the vaccines and other hormones, etc. Now, by application, the different areas are oncology, blood disorder, metabolic diseases, infectious diseases, cardiovascular diseases, neurological diseases, immunology, and certain other applications. The main areas the biopharmaceuticals have a major importance is North America and Europe, because their regulations and their requirements have been very well established. Then we have the Asia Pacific, India included, and the Latin America, Middle East, and Asia region. Some of the major players in the biopharmaceutical industries is Abbott, Amgen, Biogen, Eli Lilly, Roche, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Novo Nordisk, and Pfizer. So these have been very well established for a long time. They are like innovators mostly. The global pharmaceutical markets, I mean, when we're talking career opportunities, it's very important to know if there's a market for these products, then we have job opportunities coming accordingly. So we can see that there was a slide which I have, and I'm not sure, since you cannot see this, I'll let you know that in the market demand, still from 2017, monoclonal antibodies has been a major market, closely followed by the insulin and other recombinant products. And there's always a potential for more growth in 2025. I mean, they've already established that this market is never going to be lagging. Can I take any questions on this so far, or shall we move into the opportunities and sections and departments?
Yeah, if there are any questions, you can definitely take.
If there's anybody who wants to understand what biopharmaceuticals are, then you can pose your questions right away. I'm assuming there are no questions. So let's go into the associated departments in a regular manufacturing company, especially biopharmaceuticals. Like we have 5 main sections. And of this, the main section in biopharmaceuticals especially is the production area, where we have the upstream and downstream activities. Upstream means you actually grow the cells that are producing your drug substance. Okay, and this will be anything from bacterial cells, or you can have mammalian cells which are grown in fermenters, huge fermenters, and they are made to produce the protein. Now these proteins, they will be of human origin. They'll have the same sequence, the protein sequence of the human variety, and they will be transfected into these cells. And there's a series of production and downstream activities to purify these proteins and to bring them into a druggable format. After the production, these go into QC, and they do the testings to release the product. There will be a lot of testing done to maintain the 3 critical factors, which are the quality of the product, the safety, and the efficacy of the product. Then it'll go into the QA, which is the quality assurance. They will make sure that they fulfill the requirements as a GMP facility. The regulatory part will be taken care of by the regulatory body, which will make sure that we follow the guidelines and the established rules for the drug to be released. And then you will have the BD and the business development and the marketing, which will take these products out to the rest of the market. So these are the 5 pillar areas which contribute in the pharmaceutical sector. Now, what the R&D does specifically is, which is my area, is that we bridge the gaps between the production and the QC. Like we give them the required methodologies and studies to make sure that the product matches with the quality requirements throughout. And at the same time, it also supports the regulatory requirements and follows the regulatory requirements at a whole. Then, so this is one area which is other than the production, the QC, the QA, regulatory, and BD, marketing and sales. R&D is one of the main areas. Then another area that we have in the pharmaceutical industry is the engineering and the maintenance. To take care of all the equipments and the fermenters and the sterilization equipment. There's a lot of equipments and technology which is being used in the bioproduction process. So that's also another area. Then we have the IT section, which supports the right now what happens is there's a lot of regulatory and GMP requirements which require that all the data be presented during the process and after the process. So IT has a lot of role in this to support the requirements to what do you say, the link the production and the QC and the regulatory activities together on a single platform. Then we have the quality aspect also at the same time, which is taken care of by the IT, which is we have these QMS software, that is the quality management software, which again it handles the various requirements. Like we have certain issues called corrective and preventive actions and change controls and all of these things which require to be moduled and set as a plan. So this is where IT comes in. And it also comes in at areas where we have the requirement for all the equipments to be validated. For example, we have something called the computer system validation, which is again an IT input during for all the equipments. Now, when you come to the organogram, basically, below the CEO, which is the Chief Executive Officer, you have Chief Technology Officer, you have the CQO, which is the Chief Quality Officer, the Chief Scientific Officer or the Director of R&D, the CFO, the CHRO, the Marketing Sales Director, the Supply Chain, you have the IT Director, then you have the packaging and stores requirement, and you have purchase as some of the major areas. In the quality, you will have somebody heading the QA section and the QC section. So what I'm trying to get to you is that it's not only the pharma people who get jobs in the pharmaceutical industry. There's a lot of, especially in recent times, there's a lot of people with other backgrounds who have opportunities, career opportunities in the same. And they come from different backgrounds. So that's what I'm trying to bring to you at. And for my department, which is the R&D department, we basically have a CSO as the head of the R&D organization, followed by a project manager, because there'll be a lot of projects that are going on. And I'll come to you how what kind of projects come to us. And we have under this segment a director for the regulatory affairs, because they work closely with the R&D to understand whether certain products can be made in, and they fill in the requirements that are required for certain countries and certain regulatory agencies. Then we have somebody to take care of the clinical and the bioequivalent studies. We have the formulation head who takes care of all the formulation requirements. And we have an analytical head who takes care of all the analytical requirements. From that, we basically have team leads and senior analysts and senior scientists, junior analysts, junior scientists, and so on. Now, the R&D organogram is different for different countries and different companies. The reason why we say that is it depends on the kind of products that you're working on. And most R&D biopharmaceutical companies, they do not require to be very innovative, as in the new biotech products do not come from pharmaceutical companies. They come from independent research organizations. So what the R&D pharma does is basically they will buy in the technology from the technology sellers, and then they will execute it and maybe run from a pilot scale or a lab scale to a full-fledged large-scale production unit, tech transfer. So this is the basic requirement from the R&D. And other than this, what I would like to say is that there are different kinds of biopharmaceutical companies. There are biopharmaceutical companies which actually work on innovative products which are new, and they require to go through all the regulations, which are the FDA and the EMA regulations. And then there are these companies which produce generic products. Now, when I say generic and innovator is the original product that's for the first time it's being introduced, and the generics are the follow-on products or the ones which are copies of the original product. So similarly, in the biopharmaceutical sector, we have the biologics, which are the originator molecules, and the biosimilars, which are the follow-on molecules or the copy molecules. Are you guys clear till now, or you want me to explain more on that? I see okay, we've got the presentation at the same time. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Okay. Now here we're going to talk about the basic qualifications that we have for biopharmaceutical requirements. You have people from diploma and +2 who will be working as lab assistants and helpers, which constitute around 10 to 15% of the workforce in a biopharmaceutical company. Then you have people with a bachelor's degree, which will be this the 35%, which is most of the workforce for a biopharmaceutical company. The master's degree holders, which could be on any requirements. It could be from chemistry, biochemistry, or life sciences background, which constitutes another 32%. Then you have BTech and MTech students who are basically, you have this courses called BTech in biotechnology and MTech. They are mostly applicable in the production sector, which constitutes another 15%. Then you have doctors who mainly fill in the roles for it's called pharmacovigilance, and certain other requirements which require an input of a doctor and for doctors to be involved in. Then you have the PhDs are the least number of people that we require in the industry, because basically they are required only for certain roles, and the thing that biopharmaceutical companies look for is basically experience more than degrees, because you can find people who are just a bachelor's degree and who have a very varied experience or specific experience, who are more sought after than higher degrees. Now, this will not be the case in India in most regions, because of the number of PhDs that we have available. But in this region, which is the Middle East and the North African region, we have heads of departments who are just bachelor's degrees, but with a whole load of experience in the same field. And one of the striking factors of the biopharmaceutical or a regular pharmaceutical industry is that you have this constant trainings that keeps going on. You have a lot of things to learn, a lot of trainings, a lot of technology upgradations that keep on happening, and you need to keep on learning and keep the learning curve you have to keep the learning curve going. So whatever happens, even if you spend 3 years in the pharmaceutical industry, your requirements and your upgradation will be at par with the same kind of years. And now, as I said, the requirements and the number of people and the percentage of the workforce will keep varying from one region to another, depending on the kind of people that they have access to. Can we move on to the next slide? Oh, I think we're done. I would like to take questions if we have something.
So Nabeel bhai, in the chat box, there are chat. There are few conversations.
Okay, I'll go through those requirements. Okay, so I'm taking the questions from the chat box. It says Sadaf is asking for contact us for R&D related information. I'm sharing my LinkedIn profile as well. I'm open on LinkedIn for any questions that you have based on R&D requirements or others. I'm particularly interested in engaging with people and trying to help them out with understanding in their careers and moving on from one job to another. So you may connect me on my LinkedIn profile. I can share that LinkedIn profile with you. I will do that in the chat itself. The other questions are Abdul Nadeem Khan has asked us to begin with, or as a startup, what are the opportunities we have? Okay. As a startup, it's a very expensive industry to for a startup. I mean, unlike your regular business startups, there's a lot of investment that goes into this, and there's a lot of regulations, and there's a lot of risk. So if you would see, there would be certain companies that work on a particular area rather than a whole spectrum of production. There will be some companies, especially in India, which start on giving services for maybe a certain analytical requirements, or there might be companies which produce cell lines for producing your molecule of interest, or there might be companies which actually support in the regulatory activities, or they might have a small scale setup. And what happens from there is they sell these technologies or they sell the services, and then they slowly get acquired by a bigger company. That's the way you generally see. Or there will be CROs, which are like contract research organizations, which take in projects and then they do the projects and they sell the project off. And there are a lot of companies that, in my experience, there will always be some Western countries, let's say from the US itself, where they will outsource their technology requirements to companies in India and China, and they will take up the studies from there. And these are mainly for innovator companies who are searching for certain products or certain specific diseases, and that's how it works. So startup, for as a business, it's not recommended because of the investment that's required for this. But at the same time, there have been a lot of companies which have established certain testing facilities and services which have a good opportunity. I hope I'm clear with this. If there's anything in particular that you're asking about, please let me know. If we have new small molecules. Okay, small molecules. Small molecules are not biopharma. Let me just clarify that once again. The biopharmaceutical products are called large molecule products. Small molecules in pharma companies. The way we do it at our company is that small molecules, if they have the clinical studies done, then people will discuss, because there's a lot of risk involved in the approvals, right? So if the small molecules come with the required number of studies, at least a clinical study, the non-clinical and the clinical studies, then there are some way to do it. But companies don't take up generally molecules which do not have any studies with it, because there's a lot of risk. The failure rate is very high for different products. and there are a lot of big players in the market. You can contact me separately, and you can see how can I help you in this requirement. Anything else? Now, another thing that I would like to add is people who go for the conventional, studies, other than, because we have a lot of demand for engineers and doctors. So people who do go for the bachelor's degrees and the master's degrees and all, they should know that the opportunities are there. But the thing is that we'll have to choose, or we'll have to have a plan from the beginning on what kind of jobs we are expecting and what we need to go to, because you can never say that this particular degree has more of an option and that particular degree has. The idea is to have a proper understanding on which area we want to work in and what's our interest, and then accordingly take those kind of courses.
Nabeel bhai, there is one question in the chat about a person who is doing masters in chemistry. So is it advisable to do PhD in chemistry? Will that help?
For the pharma industry, a PhD in chemistry is not a requirement, but it's always good to do it. But at the same time, it depends on which area that person is looking for. I haven't seen that question in the chat.
Yeah, it came to me directly by Kausar.
Okay. All right. So it depends on the industry that we are looking into. For the pharma,
Kausar, if you have, Kausar, if you want to speak directly, that will be better.
That's okay. But in general, what I would say is that a PhD is always good. But the thing is that you don't require a lot of PhDs, so there will be a lot of competition in that area. So for a person whose experiences are going to match, for them a PhD will be good. But for a person who's from the academic background and looking for a PhD and then trying to move to the industry, it will be a little bit more daunting task. Is that clear?
So who does the research part of it, where the PhDs will be required more?
The research part is mostly done by universities. There will be some technology incubators in the universities generally. So they are the ones who try to look for the new molecules, because there's a lot of what we said before. There's a lot of collaboration between industries and the universities to take care of the research part. What's commercializable is what's more important for the pharma industry. Like they don't want to take, especially the normal generic companies or the biosimilar companies, they don't want to take in a lot of risk. Because I'm not sure if you know about this, but generally the failure rate for a new molecule to come is very, very high. Okay, like if you have 30 molecules which are going into research, out of that maybe one actually passes the requirements. Some of them will be very efficacious, but they might be toxic at the same time. And they might be all okay till the non-clinical studies or the phase 1 clinical studies, and the phase 2 or phase 3 they might fail. So there's a lot of investment and a lot of money that goes into this. So what the companies, what they do is they play it safe. They will take up collaborations with different universities and research centers. And once they have a molecule which is good enough, what they do is they will either take in 50% or some percentage of the investment for the further studies, which looks promising for them.
So you have collaborations with the universities and you can work together on the research part of it.
We do not have fixed collaborations with universities. It depends on the project. It depends on the molecule that we're going for. And this is mostly for innovator companies that they have these kind of collaborations. Ours is basically a generic or a biosimilar company. So what we do is we go for molecules which are already established in the market. For example, let's say insulin. Insulin has been there for a long time. And then there are other analogs of insulin, like something insulin. We know how insulin works. There are molecules which have been modified or called analogs, called like glargine or aspart, which have a difference in the molecular structure, and the way the pharmacodynamics works is different from an insulin for glargine. So the originators, what they do is they will try to come up with these analogs and the first time molecules. What we do is we copy those kind of molecules and then we barge into the same market basically. Am I clear?
Yes, thank you. So do we have any other questions from the audience?
Let me share my LinkedIn address as well and profile, so that if there's anybody else who wants to get in touch. I've shared my LinkedIn profile. Please connect with me on this for any questions that you might have. And if I cannot solve them, or if I can refer you to somebody else, I will do that. Abdul Aleem Khan has said, I am at Pune University. Like to discuss more? Sure, no problem. We can discuss. May I know if there's anybody who is working on biotechnology products in the current attendees? If there's anybody working on this, or if it's a new area for them?
You can reply in the chat, or you can raise your hand.
We are okay. Abdul Aleem Khan has responded. We are into designing small molecule for anti-cancer. Yes, that's a good area. And there's another additional thing that I want to say is that there's a lot of there's a cusp between the small molecules and the large molecules, which is they have something called I'm not sure what your chemical moieties are for the small molecules, but there are certain things called cytotoxic drugs, which are chemically designed drugs which help in the chemotherapy. Now, there's a relatively new area called antibody conjugates. So antibody conjugates are nothing but the monoclonal antibodies which are established in the oncology studies. They are linked by linkers to specific cytotoxic moieties, and this will help these drugs, which is called the antibody conjugates, to go and hit on specific types of cancer. Like, for example, we know that chemotherapy does a lot of damage on its own, and monoclonal antibodies are very specific. So they combine these two technologies to make sure that they hit the proper target, especially for cancers which are not treatable on the regular delivery programs. Like there will be some areas which require a certain concentration of chemical moieties to be going and hitting on certain targets. That's great. All right. May I know anything else? If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask them later on as well. Not an issue.
Okay, I think that's all from the audience side. So thanks a lot to everyone for joining. And thanks, Nabeel bhai, also for taking time and doing all the preparation and presenting very interesting topic to all of us. So inshallah, we will keep on having other sessions to the related topic, inshallah.
All right.
Okay, with
Thank
this,
you.
we close this session.
All right. Thank you, Saif bhai, for this opportunity. We'll try to have more interactions on any specific topics that you have. We can try to do that. It's all about understanding the requirements. And there's a lot of people who do not seem to know about the opportunities that are available in the pharma